welcome back to the channel, and on today's video we're going to look at doing a Buffalo Plaid soap, or a gingham soap if you're in the UK, I believe. So anyway, what we've got to do first of all is actually create two colours that we can combine to create a third. Now I've got in my little jugs here black and white, and I'm just bringing my batter here up to trace. Now the idea behind this is that with a Buffalo Plaid you create one colour of one soap which you then chop into blocks, a second colour that will complement the first colour, and when you combine those two colours you will get a third colour which will give you a kind of intermediary between the two of them. So what I've got here is black and white, and obviously my third colour is going to be grey, but we're going to add a little bit of interest into the third colour that I'll show you in a little while. So I'm actually not using activated charcoal or titanium dioxide in either of these. I'm actually using Arctic White, which is the white colour, and that's going to give me my white soap. And then in my other one I'm using Moonlight. Again, these are both from a company called Resonate in the UK, and the black colour will be popped into a mould and then popped into the oven for C-pop, because I want to retain the blackness of it, and black, when you don't C-pop it, tends to be grey. And then the white colour I won't C-pop, because when you C-pop white it tends to go kind of creamy and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm just weighing my bowl with my batter into it, because I want to divide it into two. And on the handle on the right, on the left hand side, you'll see there I've actually written on the bowl the weight of the bowl. So I can weigh the entire bowl and its contents minus the bowl weight, and it gives me the content weight, which allows me to split things down. And I do this for every single jug that I own, so I know how much they weigh, and then I can take that off when I weigh it. It just saves having to work everything out in advance, and if I add anything else into the mix I then have to take that into account. It makes working a bit quicker. So I think, let's have a look here. We're going to pour this into our white, and I can't remember, I think this is about 800 or 900 grams, because I made a 1500 gram batch, I think it was, to pour these two. I'm not filling the molds up to the top, I'm leaving them a little bit shy, because I'm basically then going to put this through a log splitter, and I'll show you how I kind of get smaller than a 2 centimetre cut on all of these. So that's the white one there, and then we'll pour our black one in here. Now what you'll notice as I'm doing this, and this is quite important, if you want to avoid too many bubbles in your bar and your soap, so you get that kind of ribboned texture when you cut through it, try and pour it onto the spatula that's inside it, and that will stop a lot of the bubbles forming within the batter. Now there we go, 750 grams. It was a 1500 gram batch. We're just going to pop the rest of this in, because it was probably a little bit more than that, maybe 800. Yeah, so it was a 1600 gram batch, and I've divided that between the two jugs there. You're always going to get a little bit of waste there, but it's pretty near on. So let's give this a quick wipe down here, and then we'll mix this colour in for each of these ones. Now I did mix the colour into some oil beforehand, which makes it far easier to kind of get it to mix into the batter beforehand. So this is our white colour, and you can see it's still got a little bit of a creaminess to it that will come out of it when it saponifies, and the black is a really nice deep black colour. Now I used 2 grams of mica in the white and 2 grams of mica in the black. So when it comes to combining them, in theory I should be able to use 1 gram of each, although because black does tend to have this far stronger appearance to it, I'm actually only going to use roughly kind of half a gram, and I'm going to build up the black until I get the grey colour that I'm looking for. So whilst we let that soap saponify overnight, we're going to then start extruding the little squares that are going to sit within our grey sections, and these are the ones that are going to be suspended through each grey section. So I'm basically using a standard extruder gun with a standard size extruder disc. Now some of the colours that I chose were not the best in terms of making soap dough, so they were a little bit kind of grainy and stuff, but for the purpose of what I wanted to do with them, as I was working it through the gun I would mush it back up and then bring it back together, and basically we're just extruding these here. So I'm going to extrude each one of these pieces out, and then what we're going to do is move across to looking at my spacer bits for these to sit into. Now the spacer bits look a little bit like this. They're 5mm pieces that are 5mm deep and 15mm square. I'm using a pair of calipers set to around about 5mm to actually just score onto the top of each spacer section. And then using a flat-ended scalpel blade, I'm just going to cut little U-shaped sections out of each one of these, and these basically will allow the extruded pieces of soap dough to slot into. So when I take my hands away here, just in a second, you'll see that little U-shape. Our extruded piece will slot into that, and that will suspend it through each of the grey sections. So we allowed the soap to set up for 24 hours, and then we've come back to it, and we're basically cutting it into 15mm high slivers or sections, and then each one of those 15mm high bits is being cut into a 15mm square. Now my slab cutter will not go down lower than 2 centimeters or 20mm, and I wanted these at 15. So what I've done here is I've got a piece of plastic, a piece of acrylic. There's lots of places online that you can buy this from in varying thicknesses, and all I'm doing is using that additional height of the plastic to slide the soap through, giving me my 15mm square sections of soap. So once we've got those squares out, I've got a calipers here, digital calipers, and I'm cutting each one of these into 9cm squares. Now, you can measure this up against the mould, but I like to be a little bit more accurate here. So basically, I've got this set, and I'm going to cut each one of my long sections into the 9cm I require. Now, the 9cm is basically my square mould is 9cm by 9cm. But whatever your mould length is, or whichever way you want the soap to look when you've cut it, you want these to go along the way that you wish your buffalo plaid to be shown. So you'll have to excuse my head nipping in and out here, but hopefully you can see exactly what's going on when we get to this section here. Now, the buffalo plaid has a pattern which kind of goes horizontally in colour sections. So along the bottom, we're going to have white, grey, white, grey, white, grey. And then above it, we're going to have grey, black, grey, black, grey, black, and then white, grey, white, grey. So it goes in the same way. So what you see here is I've put my first block in, and that's pushed right up against the side. And then I'm going to put my spacer sections in, and that is going to suspend my coloured square running through it to then keep it 5mm right in the middle of each section. So without too much deviation in the middle, I know that that piece of soap is going to sit right in the middle of each one of my sections. Now, it's a bit fiddly and you do kind of have to play around with it, and you can see my head getting in the way there as I'm looking, but I want that directly in the centre there. Once I've got that in the position I want it, my next block goes in here, and you can see there that I'm actually getting that one butted right up. Now, because this is 9cm and each one of these is 1.5, in theory, I should have 6 pieces, but it worked out that there was a little bit of extra. So you kind of just have to go with the flow on this one, really, when you're doing it. So it's a fiddly bit when you get in this bottom section. And if you've got a bigger mould or you're working in a slab mould, whatever you're working in, you just have to kind of deal with it. But I kind of like these tester moulds for doing things like this in. So that's why we're working with this one as is. And then what we're going to do is get our next colour, and it's going to slot into there. And it's really just doing the same process over and over on this first layer. And then we'll get our grey mixed up, and you can see the difference in the colours. Now, one of the important things I did find when doing this technique was to actually let everything that I was going to use as blocks set up for at least half a day, if not a little bit longer. So all of these are nicely saponified. I'm still working in gloves because I have quite heavy fingerprints. And if I'm working with soaps where I don't want my fingerprints kind of sitting or sticking, I tend to always wear gloves. So we've got that one there. Now I've got this little bit of an edge. So that's 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5. And the mould is a little bit smaller than 9cm. What I just need to do here is chop this little block of sacrificial soap, as it were, in half to give myself a kind of 6 or 7mm piece. which I can then slot into the little gap I've got, which just allows me to keep everything butted up to one side and therefore all in line. So I'm just getting this quick measure here to get the right measurement. Now these calipers are jewellery calipers. They're used for marking metal. This was very handy when you want to mark a piece of soap. Rather than trying to align a little piece of soap up on a ruler and try and mark it, I just get the calipers to the size that I want them, and then I can score that line down the centre, and it's far easier to kind of make a nice cut. Just in frame there as well, you'll also see a set square. Now this again is a jeweler set square. I have a terrible time sometimes of actually getting nice straight cuts, and what I find is if I mark a nice horizontal line using that set square, I'll always get a nice horizontal line that I can follow with a knife or a palette knife or something like that. So that's why you've got that one there, and I'm just making those little marks. Now, I made a mark down one side, and I've made a mark down the other side because this was slightly off of being central. But if I do both sides and I put the knife pretty much in the centre, it's going to give me a half and half block of soap. So let's get that one in there. There we go. And then we can just chop this. We can chop a kind of rough 5mm deep piece off of each one of these to give us the end sections there. So we'll get these ones plugged in here, and then we'll move on to actually getting the kind of grey colour poured out. Now I've already got my oils sorted, and I've got my lye solution cooled and ready to go. But whilst I was just fiddling around with this first layer, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I find that mixing up layers of soap can be a little bit awkward if there's small bits with small bits of lye. I've mixed up the entire portion of soap, or I will mix up the entire portion of soap with the lye solution, and I will just allow that to come to a very, very light trace. And because I'm not relying on the soap to actually support the weight of the layers above it, I can keep it a very thin trace. I can get it into all the nooks and crannies. I can get this soap nice and solid so it sticks together, and I'm not worried about anything not being aligned. So, and I quite like these acrylic molds because I can see through them and I can see if I've got things aligned in the right place or not. So that's the first layer. So white, grey, white, grey, white, and the edge section. So what I'm going to do now is mix up my grey colour here, and you can see I've got this really nice kind of mix of the white and the black. So I've got this really beautiful grey colour here, and we're just really going to bring this up so it comes to a nice trace before we then start to use it in the soap. So all I've done is given it a little mix there, and I'm just bringing it up to the right trace. And once again, what we're going to do is use the spatula here to actually break the fall and to stop too many bubbles going into the soap itself, because within a soap like this, if you've got lots of bubbles happening, that can interfere with the look of the soap. So you want to be a little bit careful here and try and avoid as many bubbles as you can. So you can see how each of those is now suspended, and I'm just pouring this soap in very gently, and it's filling the section up nice and neat and tidy there. And I'm pouring it up so that we've got a little bit of soap above each section and maybe a little bit in between, because as they push down, they are going to squeeze out a little bit and it's going to move around a wee bit, but you want it all to kind of come together. So we're just going to get this last little bit in here, and then we'll move on to the next layer. Now for the next layer, we're going to start on the same side, but this time we start with the grey, which means I need my little separator, my little kind of spacer into that section. And we're going to pop the next little spacer into this end. Again, apologies for the head there, but I need to be able to see down into it. And then we're going to put our next colour little block in. And can't quite decide on which colour to use, but we're going to go with these nice blue ones. And we'll get that in. And basically you're going to follow the same principle for each layer that you put in additionally. You're going to have first your block, then I'm going to just support it with these little ones. In actual fact, no, I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to kind of go with it. Then you get your next colour block in, and because we've got our spacers in there and they're the right size, this is actually sitting on the spacers. I'm not displacing too much of the soap itself, and therefore it's just sitting really nicely. We're going to cut the ends off anyway, so I've got 5mm each end that I don't need, and it's going to give me 3 really nice bars, quite big bars from this mould as well. So I'll pop some music on now. I'll let you see the rest of this if you want to, or you can head to the next chapter by using the links just in the bar below. And so once we've got all of our layers poured, what we're going to do now is just mark out some 5mm pieces of the saponified white and black soaps, and I'm going to make a pattern on the top, very basically a buffalo plaid along the top of the soap to match the buffalo plaid that is below the soap or running through the soap. So that's just really cutting a number of these squares and then just laying them down on the top along with some of the black ones. And then we have the final soap pretty much done. I'm just going to put these last little bits in. Now, unfortunately, I didn't manage to get the cutting of this soap on video, and I do apologise for that one, but I did need to get it kind of cut and photographed. So unfortunately, you don't have that, but I will show you the soap in all of its glory on the little turntable next. So I hope you've enjoyed this little video. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me grow and allows me to make more videos and tutorials for all of you. When you subscribe, don't forget to click the bell icon if you'd like to get notified when a new video is uploaded. And thanks a lot, Soapsters. I'll see you again next time.